Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here. Let's jump in. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I'm speaking with an amazing woman named Maureen Ross Gemme. Maureen is an ex-corporate girl, motorcycle adventurer, speaker, leadership trainer, and coach who has been in recovery from addiction since 1985. After 30 years in corporate, she founded Emerge Leadership Academy in 2015 and now trains managers to be better leaders. She recognizes how much the world is craving better leaders and is helping to shape them. She also has a podcast for the recovery community called Emerge, Evolve, Lead, and we are happy to have her join us. Welcome, Maureen. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me, Sabrina.
Yes. Where are you calling in from, by the way?
I am calling from the Northeast. I live in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Little tiny state up in the middle of, it feels like nowhere, but it's indeed a beautiful place to live.
You know what? I have heard that.
Yeah.
I have heard that.
We have pink and purple trees in May, and then July is just wonderful, lush and green. And and the winters are not so bad. At least lately, they haven't been bad. But sometimes there's a lot worse places to live. Let me say that.
I hear you for sure. Yes, Connecticut isn't one that I naturally think of when I think of one of the states, probably because it is so little.
Yeah.
It's like a little guy up there. Well, I so appreciate you being here, hanging out with me for a little bit of time to share your story and some nuggets of information that you've acquired along the way in your journey. I want to give a shout out real fast to those that are already jumping on live. Thank you for being here and hanging out with Maureen and I. Maureen, so this podcast is all kind of centered around storytelling and around journeys that we've all been on. So I have a pretty big question to ask you right up front, and that is, what has been your biggest challenge and what did you learn from that challenge?
Oh, I don't know. I think life is a big enough challenge that anybody has to overcome. I've had several, because of my age, I've had several major transitions in my lifetime, but the first one was probably the biggest challenge. I came from, a family of Irish Catholic folks. So my parents had like 6 kids in 8.5 years. I'm number 3. And so I was always just one of the pack. I never really, I was just wanting to fit in all the time. And so when I became a teenager, I just wanted to still fit in, but I really had no idea who I was. I was always told what to do and when to do it, basically growing up. But so I got into sex, drugs, and rock and roll because that was my time period way back in the day, right? So I became addicted as a teenager. By the time I was 15, I was full drug addict, alcoholic, and barely made it through high school. It was a really difficult time in my life. I had a horrible attitude. I hated authority figures. I never wore shoes. I was shooting darts, playing pool, and drinking shots all the time. By the time I was 16, 17 in the bars. The drinking age was 18 back then. And then I, as soon as I graduated high school, which I barely did by the skin of my teeth because I hardly ever went. I mean, just as an example, that in 10th grade, I missed so much school that on the first day, I missed like 60 days out of 180 days school year or something like that. I just skipped all the time and I couldn't stand it. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be there. I just wanted to be drunk or high. And then when I got into my 11th year, my junior year of high school, I walked in, they said, before we give you your schedule, you have to make up for all the detentions you missed last year, which was a full week. All day, every day. And then they finally gave me my schedule. And then I did the same thing that year. And they wanted to not give me my schedule until I made up all my detentions in my senior year of high school. And after the first day of detentions, I said, give me my schedule or I'm walking. I did not care one single bit about getting my degree. And they said, no, we'll give you your schedule. So there's a couple of reasons why I actually made it through that senior year of high school, but I don't need to go into all that. Just suffice it to say that between the ages of 17 and 24, I moved 13 times. That's a lot of times. I was constantly running and trying to figure out who I was. So that's when I had my first major challenge. I had to transform. I had to figure out who I was. And by the time I was 24, I really did hit my bottom. And I decided to reach out and get the help that I desperately needed. And I got on the path. But I tried to get help at first for myself. And I just couldn't do anything until I gave up the addiction of drugs and alcohol. But when you give up that addiction, you have to give up everything. You can't go to the same places. You can't hang out with the same people. You almost have to like quit your job and start something new, because the bottom line is everything has to change, because otherwise you're just triggered constantly. You just want to have, to drink. And so anyways, I got the help I needed. I did get into 12-step recovery, and I began on that journey of wellness, of recovery. And it has everything in my life changed. And I had a major transformation. I had spiritual experiences. I had more and more, I figured out who I was. And then I had a career and I had a family, and I have another whole bunch of stories, but that's the biggest challenge, Sabrina, was really deciding to feel my feelings, stop escaping all the time, and allow the brightest version of who I am to start shining. And that is not through drugs and alcohol. Let me tell you that. No.
Where did that defiance come from? Like, what was going on? Was it just attention because there was 8 of you and or did you feel lost? Where was all that coming from?
Well, I think it was a lot of anger for not being able to have the kind of freedom that I wanted at such an early age. Yeah, it wasn't really from my parents. I wasn't like abused in any way, although my dad was an alcoholic. He was just a mild-mannered kind of drunk. They had their cocktails before dinner, and then he would just fall asleep on the couch basically after drinking all evening. But he wasn't there for me emotionally. But emotionally, coming from an Irish Catholic family, I was told all the time to shut it down. There's no time for drama, right? There's no time for all of this. It's not all about you. I was told all the time I had a bad attitude, and I had no idea what an attitude was. I do not have a bad attitude. I do not. And I just really had no idea who I was. But I do believe that sometimes you have to be who you're not in order to figure out who you really are. Does that make sense?
To be who you're not. Oh, yes. Wait, say that again for the people in the back.
Yeah. So you have to be who you're not in order to figure out who you really are. Because it's only through the pain of not aligning like with your values and with who you really should be or are, that pain will bring you to a place where you realize I can't be who I'm not anymore. I have to be who I am. And unfortunately, that often happens in midlife. That's what we call the midlife crisis, right? When you're about 40, suddenly the kids are grown and you realize you're in a job that sucks and you don't want to be on the planet anymore because your relationship was never real or whatever. Like a lot of that stuff happens in midlife. for me, it happened young. I was able to get there because I drank and drugged and tried to escape so much because I didn't want to feel the pain of being human. But it is painful being human. Would you agree?
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, 100%. And, I talk about this a lot as far as, coaches that coach rainbows and sunshine versus coaches that coach a little more realism. And yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I would tend to agree that yes, life is and can be hard. And I think that's what makes it what it is the goods and the bads. You got to be able to take both 100%. I'm still trying to imagine you just never wearing shoes. I
Oh,
just love that.
I used to put cigarettes out with my bare feet. They were like leather. And of course,
Wow.
in Connecticut, though, you do have to wear shoes in the winter. There's no walking around like, without shoes. But yeah, I was a little hippie, if you will, and, just wore low cut jeans with that and the big bell bottoms that just covered my
Yeah.
feet. And I never wore them to school, to the library, to the restaurants, no matter where I was. And that's how it was. Yeah. For me. Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool. I think I went through a phase like that for a small smidge because of the bell bottoms.
Yeah.
They
They
came
cover
back
your feet.
for a smidge when I was in school. And I actually made my own. So like my mom wouldn't buy them for me. So I turned all of the jeans she bought me into bell bottoms just by
Oh,
cutting the
yeah.
sides and
Yeah.
adding a triangle of fabric. And yeah, I actually forgot about that. You could kind of get away with it without wearing the shoes for sure. Well, how long did it take for you to, when I did your intro, you've been sober since 1985 and now you're in recovery or you teach or coach. Um, what's the time span between, and you said you were in corporate for a while, between 1985 and then when you decided, you know what, I want to dive more into recovery?
Well, recovery started right from the beginning and it's never stopped. Right. But as
Really?
far as my career
I'm
goes,
sorry. Okay. Yeah.
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 The career started, I always had a strong work ethic. So I started working right out of high school. As a clerk somewhere, like for a toy company, actually. And then after 2 years, I went to a gun company. I worked for Colt Firearms in the shipping and receiving department. And then I went to food and I worked in the retail industry. And I actually moved to Texas because I figured the reason that everything sucked was because it was Connecticut was the problem. So I moved to Texas and I lived there for 4 years and I was a teller in a bank for a couple years. And I always had a part-time job in a bar. And I also delivered pizzas for Domino's and I was a payroll, accounts receivable kind of person for Golden Fried Chicken Corporation of America. So I did a whole variety of things trying to figure out, who am I? Who are you, Maureen? Because I wanted to know. I knew I had a lot of potential, but I couldn't figure out how to really harness that potential. And so I kept thinking it was going to be in a job or it was going to be in a man, right? And I was having boyfriend after boyfriend and no success. Finally, did I get sober? And that's when I moved back from Texas to Connecticut. I worked in wholesale warehouse as a manager in a wholesale picture frame supply company, and it's just a whole variety of things. But when I got back to Connecticut, one of the first jobs I got was a temp job looking for the Hartford Courant, looking at help wanted ads for some reason. I had some goal for that. And I found that they were doing some sort of an open house at the Hartford Financial Services Company. So I went for an interview there and I got a job within a week, full time with benefits and all the stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like I have arrived. Well, do you know, I worked for that company for 27 years. Yeah. And that's when I met, the same week I started there, I met my soon to be husband. And now we've been married for 34 years. We just had our anniversary. We had a daughter, and now she is actually transing to be a he, but has given us 4 children, and they're all under 8, 8 and under. I just had them all day yesterday. I'm exhausted. No, I'm just but it was really fun. And my life is so full. So during those years, though, at the Hartford, I actually had 13 different jobs in those 27 years because I was always constantly growing and changing. If once I mastered a role or a job, I wasn't happy there anymore. It was time to move on. Okay, it's time to learn something new. And I realized that one of my highest values is education and personal growth. And so I switched kind of from this addiction of, drugs and alcohol to personal growth and development while I was in jobs really helping, different processes and whatnot in my company. But what I did do also was I decided at 40 to go back to school. And I got my undergraduate degree in psychology because I love the study of human behavior and helping people. And I also went on and got my master's degree in education with a focus on training and performance and training and performance improvement, if you will, right? So I continued to work for the Hartford a few more years after that, but I finally left in 2013 because I only got as high as I could go there. And I've had so many different jobs, but there wasn't anything else really there for me. I wanted to train leaders. So I formed my own company. At first I needed a break. I said, give me a couple years off, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. I need a break. And I took a 2-year break and just did life coaching. Okay. And I also wrote my own programs, like my own sort of VIP coaching program on how to have a transformation because I'd been through so many. I've been transforming myself constantly and consistently all these years. And one of the best ways to start is to get to know yourself and your personality. So I studied the Myers-Briggs type indicator personality type. I studied that was mostly in my 30s and 40s. And then also in my 40s and 50s, I got deep into the Enneagram. Love that stuff. I could talk about personality all day. And then in my 50s, I really got into everything DISC because it's so easy to train leaders and managers on how to use everything DISC to understand their people, to understand their own self first, but then how to develop other people using this model. So that's what I do now. I'm an authorized partner with Everything DISC, and I train. I've trained over, well over 2,000 people in the past 7 years since 2015. And on how to really understand yourself and also understand others so that you don't have to have as many conflicts at work, so that you can really develop your relationships in a really deep and meaningful way. And that is the nature and focus of my work now. I help managers and teams get more synergized so they can really understand themselves. And I also help individuals become better leaders, through my coaching program called Recovery at Work. And then I have a podcast for people in recovery because I just love helping and meet awesome people like you, so that I can, help that community as well.
Definitely a transformation, I'm going to say. So I'm going to say you're definitely an expert in that field. I love it. Can you tell us a smidge about DISC? I've had a few ladies on here mention it, but for those that are listening that haven't heard, can you kind of explain what that is?
Yeah, sure. Would you like me to first I'll just sort of explain for your listeners what each type is, and then we can talk a little bit more about what you might be, and then they can self-identify at the same time. So the DISC itself, DISC, stands for, each letter stands for a word. And we'll just go right around. Imagine sort of a round map drawn into quadrants. And the top quadrant is the D on the left. And it's the D, and the D stands for dominance. Now, the dominance type is that person that's really focused on results. They are fast acting. They make decisions quickly. They want to get the results and make an impact. So they're constantly moving, constantly demanding more of their staff, of their team, and also of themselves. They have very high standards for themselves, but they do sometimes want to cut corners. They can be firm. They can be challenging. They don't waste my time, let's get to the chase. Don't pussyfoot around the bush or the topic, let's call it like it is. So they can be that kind of direct, which sometimes feels like they're stepping on toes, right? It can feel a little bit overwhelming if you're not that personality, if you don't have that. But when you get two D's together, they can butt heads in the workplace too. Like they don't mind having it out. Let's fight. Let's talk about this.
Wow.
And they're fine with it. It's like, guys, how sometimes, and I know this is a generalization, I shouldn't be, but how they could just duke it out and then suddenly they're having a beer together. They're fine, So the D's though often are like that. They're very verbal and they just want to get things done. All right. So then your I is the next top of the quadrant on the right. Stands for influence or influencer. And the I folks are very people centered. They are also, though, like the D's, they are fast paced and they want results and they're action oriented, but they are much more, they have enthusiasm at the top of their list for let's have fun while we're doing it. Right? They love to collaborate. They love people. They're great at putting teams together. They also are very creative people. So they can feel like they're all over the place sometimes, but there's a method to their madness often. But also people can see them as confusing if they're not in linear thinking, because a lot of people are linear thinkers, right? And anyways, they're not, they can also be seen as like not serious enough because they're always cutting jokes or laughing or, whatever. Or randomly jumping from one thing to another. So that's your I's. Then you go to the lower right-hand quadrant of your circle and you have the S. The S stands for steadiness. And these folks are also like the I's. They like collaboration and they are people focused, but they're much more calmer and quieter and sort of reflective. They're not as fast paced, but they are worker doers, right? They are great resource people. They like stability, though. They do not like chaos. They do not like conflict, but they're very kind and they're generous and they will help you, like almost to a fault. Sometimes they can be too accommodating or they can seem a little wishy-washy because they want to please all the people all the time. And they don't know how to say no. They just want to help. Right? So we know these people, sometimes they could be seen as rescuers, but they're super loyal also. And we need them in the workplace, right? We need all of our types. We need all of them. And none of them are any better than any else. Also, I will tell your listeners, right, that you will see yourself in every one of these styles, but you have a predominance towards one or two of those styles, right? So it's usually a primary and sometimes a secondary style for you, but you definitely have all of them. It's just that these are more of natural inclinations for you. All right. And then you get to the last one, which is the C in the bottom left-hand quadrant of your circle. And the C stands for conscientiousness. And these are your people that also like stability, don't really like conflict, but they are super quality conscious. They want precision and accuracy. So these are your sort of introverted engineering types or, professor types. They love to research and dive deep into a topic and they become experts in their field. Right. So they are really, they'll dive deep and they want that kind of expertise level. But they also they can be challenging because they don't show their emotions very much at all. So sometimes they can seem a little cold and aloof or that sort of, I don't have any time for touchy-feely stuff at all, which is, that's the whole bailiwick of the eyes, right? This is like the personality. Sometimes you have these conflicts because your eyes are really high-level feelers and your C's are very like, there is no place for emotions in the workplace, right? So they're very cut and dry about what goes in that box and they set boundaries pretty clearly. So that is the fun way to understand the disc map, if you will. So Sabrina, where do you think you fall in there? Is there one or two of those styles that most represent you?
I mean, pretty much what you said. I feel like there's a little bit of everything. I feel like the least would be the consciousness. Is that what you said?
Conscientiousness. Yeah.
Conscientiousness would be
Yeah.
the least. I would say influence. I related to, I could tick more than any of them.
You're also a driver. You're also, I think, have the dominance type in you. Even though I know your story, even though at sometimes you have been, more of the, maybe you are more of an IS. I don't know, but you seem to always have that drive for results.
Yeah,
Even if it's not, in the path of what somebody else wants for you.
Yeah, when you first started talking about dominance, I kind of grinned a little bit because everything you were saying in the first like 5 or 6 were 100% me. But then when you kind of started saying that it went more negative, it actually, then I was like, well, that was my ex. So that's not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then
Those are the people that are very
I
directorial.
I was thinking of what you said earlier. You have to be who you're not in order to find who you are. And I kind of was thinking like maybe my story is that complete, just weak, submissive individual that I had to be in that relationship, really awoken or, woke up the dominance inside of me that was innately there, but just I had to play the other role for a little while to really.
Yeah, to figure out how to break out of that. And that's really what the point is about understanding your personality style, because you can choose at any time who you want to be. Right? So if there's something about you, or like we learn in the 12-step program, to really let go of our character defects, if you will. But some of them are just innate. They feel like they're just part of who we are. But then also you can choose, like, for example, I'll give you an example. I'm an I am enthusiastic, action-oriented. I love collaboration. I'm very creative. I'm kind of all over the place sometimes, but I have learned over time to be super organized, and also not, I'm very empathetic also, because I'm a feeler, right? So I feel other people's stuff. But I also know that, like, when I'm working with a team of engineers or that project manager types, or anybody that's really in the C category, that I need to stay on agenda, have my details in place, be super organized and serious, because that's how they're going to accept me and understand me a whole lot better. So it helps me to understand when, I can just let my hair down and be my funny self, or do I really need to make this agenda, get this done first, and then we can have some social time after. And so I've learned to be very organized. I've learned to be very detail oriented and quality conscious, because that's super important in the corporate workspace, which I grew up in and sort of had to serve all my life. And there were times when I thought, I don't belong here. I am not serious. Like, I should be helping people. And when my heart got so big and then I realized I'm exactly where I need to be, because these people need more people like me, number one, that see the best in them, because C's are so critical of themselves and they're critical of other people. But I can help people understand what their superpowers are, because that's what I see. I see the best in people. And same with the D's. They're super good drivers, but they do step on toes sometimes. So I'm thinking, Sabrina, you are probably an SI or an IS. I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
Okay.
Would you say that you are more than 50% of the time, that you are more outgoing and fast paced, or cautious and reflective? More than 50% of the time.
Can you say it again?
Are you more fast-paced and outgoing or cautious and reflective?
The first one.
Okay. So if you're more fast-paced and outgoing rather than cautious and reflective, that puts you either in the D or I category, more so than the other one. The second one would be, are you more questioning and skeptical or warm and friendly when it
Warm and
comes to people? So that puts you flat in the I category. My guess is S is your secondary, because you're very supportive. Look at the community that you've developed. Look at the collaboration that you love to do. But you're an extrovert because you are on Facebook all the time. You're doing lives. You have a podcast. You bring out the best in people. You're constantly, talking and really learning and discovering more and more about yourself. But you're also super supportive, and you're a resource person. You've already sent me several connections, right, of people that might be good on my podcast. So you're a connector, and you see that. I'm thinking that you are probably an I with a secondary in the S. Yeah.
I with a secondary. I want to ask, is it necessary to have all four of these in order for a business to succeed?
Well, I think you have, first of all, you have all four of them within you. Just like you have
everybody?
Yeah, everybody does.
Okay.
You have all of it within you. Like, for example, can I swear on your podcast?
Yeah. I need to start putting that. It's so funny you said that, because I just changed that main email that I put out to add that in, because so many people say that mid-podcast. So I'm like, I have to just write that somewhere in there.
Excuse me. As a person in recovery, as a drug addict and an alcoholic, I just swear all the time, because I think it adds a lot of flavor to the language. Yeah. So, but if you're, if when the shit hits the fan, when things get tough, what do? You jump into D mode, you take control and you take action and you stop this nonsense and let's get going, right? And you take control and you move forward. Like, the control is the key word, I think, of the D. But as an S or as an I, a lot of times we're more easygoing, we're warm and friendly. That's our natural sort of inclination, but we can absolutely step up and do the D work. Or when we need to, like, as a single or solo entrepreneur, we have to do the finances. We have to do the spreadsheets. We have to do the planning. We have to do the yearly, analysis and all that stuff. That's C work. Yes, we have to step into that role and do that role when we need to. But if you're on a team of people and you're the leader and you have to put a project together, you want to try to pick out people who have natural abilities as the D, natural abilities as the I, and the S and the C, because then you can have people in their natural states with their natural abilities doing their best work, and then you're most efficient. But if everybody on the team doesn't recognize their own value that they're bringing to the team and the value of their peers, they can also get, triggered by their peers, because it's like, are you kidding? You got to do another, review of this. You've already reviewed it 4 times. You're nitpicking this to death. But now I know that's C, that's their job. Like, that's the best that they're good at. I want them to review my work. I want them to look and make this the best they can be. Well, the D's are like, no, it's taking too much time. We got to get going. And, and then the S's, they kind of hold everything together and they're doing the warm, fuzzy stuff. It's really amazing how when the team knows what everybody else is, then they're able to collaborate a lot better, respect each other more, allow people to play their more natural roles in their job. And then when your natural ability comes out, then the C's are just like laughing at the drama of the I's, and they're okay with it because they know that's just who they are. you see the more acceptance that we get into,
Yeah.
that a team can get into when you really know what roles everybody is playing. So it's kind of a roundabout, detailed answer to your question, but yeah, I do think that we need all types in the workplace. Absolutely. But if you're a solopreneur, you have all those types within yourself too.
Got it. And I feel like this would also help even with couples who are married.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Because if you're listening, are you in a relationship, Sabrina?
Yeah.
And so what do you think? Were you able to sort of pick
I
out
was
what do you think your significant? Go ahead.
I feel like he's a heavy I.
Okay. And so
He's
are you.
all about fun, all about
Okay.
community, like way more so than I am. Like
Okay. So that
10 times more.
you probably have more S, right? And he has more I in that respect, right?
Yeah,
So in
I'm
your
always trying to reel him in of like,
he's
let's
overly
stay on
out there
task. Like
sometimes.
next, what's the next thing you're supposed to be doing?
Yeah. Stay on track. Yeah.
Yeah, he's all about community 100% and all about fun 100%. It's so funny because I put him in charge of doing this spiel with some of the people that we work/live with, and we I put him in charge of this topic to do a lecture on. And the day came, he had everything set up. I was just so excited. I'm like, okay, we're good. And we sit down. He starts blowing up balloons. And I'm like, in my head, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
he's distracting
this is supposed to
himself.
be a 20-minute spiel on this little topic that I just needed him to take care of. And we've got balloons now. Like, I'm
He's
just
not focusing.
so frustrated.
Focus is a tough thing. And there's other things involved. So think about this too, Sabrina, because this is really important for everybody listening, watching, whatever. Personality is just one tiny part of who you are, right? Yeah. You also have a whole different set of values. You have beliefs that are a part of you. You have your culture. You have experience and skill sets, and what have you been through in your life. Some people may have more trauma than others. Some people may have disorders, personality disorders, because of how they were raised or, how they were conditioned as a child, and or other things. Maybe there's chemical imbalances in your physiology, right, in your brain. So there's so many other things, but like I'm a solid I. Like when you get the map looks like this.
I feel like he would be a solid I.
So there's like this map. You see that round circle, right? And there's usually a dot within the map. And the dot falls, if it's closer to the center of the circle, then you have more well-rounded personality of all the types in you. If it's kind of midway, you have a moderate inclination towards that style. If you have it all the way on the outer edge, you have a strong inclination towards that style. Well, I am my dot is like 3/4 of the way outside on the outer edge. Like I'm way out there. Wow. But what I don't have is ADHD. But some people who are eyes on the outer edge and have ADHD, forget it. Like they can't organize anything, so there's other things that come. I'm not saying he has ADHD or anything.
I'm saying it. He's listening.
But I'm sorry.
I don't. He just messaged.
But I'll tell you, sometimes there are other factors, or there's just experience, or there's inexperience. Because if I have low self-esteem or low confidence, I'm going to get really, really nervous because I'm afraid of what people think of me. And yet now in my later years, I have a lot of confidence. I don't care as much what other people think of me. Honestly, I remind myself all the time that other people's ideas are none of my business, or not ideas, but their opinions of me are none of my business. And so that's a way to sort of rein myself in, my ego, my fears and all that sort of thing. But I'm gonna guess that some of the things that you guys grapple about the most might be finances or chores.
Chores.
Are you about chores and who's going to do what? Because a lot of times we just want to have fun.
Yes.
I'm saving the
There
chores
always
to the
has to be
last
music.
freaking thing.
You can't
Right.
do anything unless there's music.
Oh, see?
I'm like, we could clean the bathroom in 15 minutes. But
I
he
always
has to,
turn the music up when I'm cleaning.
he has to like get his outfit on for cleaning. He has to go through his playlist and find the correct song. He has to get a beverage or something. Then he'll start a little cleaning and then get sidetracked with like something else.
Yeah.
And it'll take like 4 hours to clean the bathroom. It's just the craziest thing I've ever seen. Well, like, and for me, on top of this, which I love that he says he's dying. He's not dying. He knows it's true. So, but on top of it, I love that you're talking about how this isn't the only thing. I think that that's so important for people to recognize.
Right.
Anything that is being covered, topic wise, there's always other layers that go on top of it. And one of the things that I deal with is my love language. So my love language is acts of service. It goes back to acts of service and physical touch, but it is acts of service. And so
that's how you like to receive.
Yes,
love.
Like 100%. So first of all, it not being just done automatically is first of all just super like I just find it so unloving. First,
you don't love me. Yeah, but now that you know that, you could stop thinking that way.
Yes, but then second, since I have to give a chore list, which is it's like asking someone for flowers. Like if your if your love language is gifts, and you have to say buy me flowers, it just takes away the whole thing of not getting flowers. So to me, it's the same thing. If I have to ask for the bathroom to be cleaned, it's equivalent to asking for flowers. So that's the first thing. It's like, dude, first I had to ask. Now it's taking 4 hours. So, really honing in on like, this actually helped me because recognizing, I've heard of this and I've gone through it before, but just reiterating it. We always need reminders. You know what I mean? We forget so easily, but I've counseled. You should say that we don't forget so easily. Well, I forget so easily.
We all do. We do. We're human, right? Yeah. And we get in our own heads and we have our own ways of thinking, which are, again, our beliefs. Yeah. And I've counseled a lot or coached a lot of people, especially in relationship. I've had a long-term relationship that's been pretty successful. My husband is an SC. So he's right on the line. He's skeptical about everything. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm so damn trusting that I've been scammed a couple of times and I've been hurt a couple of times because I take people at their word for what they say. And he doesn't take anybody at their word for what. So I'm always trying to convince so some of the things that and his love language is acts of service. So he's always doing things for me. He cooks for me, cleans for me, takes things out. But I just want to hear I love you once in a while and give me a hug. Like that's what I want. Wow. And he wants acts of service. Yes. And I don't want to do acts of service. I'm always rubbing his back. I'm telling him how awesome he is. He's like, that shit. Stop it.
That's great.
But now that we know this about each other, we can laugh at it. And we can ask for what we need in a empowering way, not in a victimized way. Like you were saying before, like if I have to ask for flowers, like I don't ask for flowers. But what I do ask is, you know what, honey, I will do those dishes. But if you could please allow me to do them in my time today, because I'm swamped with some stuff, but it's going to piss me off if you touch those dishes. Because what he does is he'll do the dishes and then I'll feel guilty because he did the damn dishes. And I just don't want to do them right now, So my daughter and I, we would have really a fun time whenever he would go away for a weekend retreat or wherever he would go away, because like, we don't have to do the dishes for a whole weekend. Woohoo!
Yes. Oh, that is so funny.
Yeah. So we just have to know ourselves and be able to ask for what we need and know that the other person, when they are doing something that says, I love you, take it for what it is. Take it for what it is. Yeah.
Yes. His is physical touch, which we share, and quality time. So my
Oh,
whole
yeah.
thing is let's clean together.
Oh, yeah.
He does not
Double
buy it though. He
2
doesn't
scoops on
buy
1
it.
cone.
He's not down with it. I haven't convinced him yet. He's still like, this sucks. Maybe
It's
one day. I still have hope. I still have hope.
yeah,
Well,
let go
listen,
of
this
that.
is absolutely phenomenal. I so love it. I want to ask, as far as this, I know that you said that you teach this. If somebody wanted to get in contact with you and learn more about this or coach with you, how would someone find you? What exactly do you do? Who should be contacting you? Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, if anybody who wants to find out more about me, simply go to my website, emergeleadershipacademy.com. Oh yes, right above my head there. And that will also bring you to the quiz. You can take this little like 7-question quiz and figure out what animal best represents your personality style. I call it your leadership style because since I train leaders, but honestly, you don't have to be a leader to take the quiz. And here's the thing. So if you were to get a D, you will be deemed the wolf. You will get the wolf animal, right?
Okay.
So if you have a more dominant personality type, but there's only 7 questions, so you'd have to go for the full assessment. It's like a 20-minute kind of a psychological assessment with everything disc, and it's there's a fee for that, but you'll find on my resources page if you wanted to check that out. But the influencer type, what animal do you think would represent? Do you know the animals that I have on the quiz?
I did briefly see it. I saw the fox or the wolf. Which one did you say?
The wolf. It's a wolf for the
Okay,
D.
I think I saw an eagle.
That's one of the animals that I want you to to identify which bird type that you are, but that's not the
That's
final
not it.
answer.
Okay, then I don't remember.
So the eagle would be the D, right?
Okay.
And then in the I category, the animal that you end up with if
An
you're an
otter.
I. Nope, it's the dolphin. But that's close. It could be
Dolphin.
the elk,
Okay,
but the
yes.
dolphin, very chatty and family oriented and enthusiastic and friendly, all that kind of thing. And if you were the bird, if the type of bird that is the I is represented by the parrot, all different colors, and again, very chatty and friendly and like a lovebird.
Yeah.
And then you have the S. The S animal is represented. Do you have a guess on that S? Steadiness?
S is steady. Ooh, like a tiger.
Oh, that's kind of, stealthy and behind it, but they're predators. S's are not predators.
Like a little
kind and gentle and loyal.
Ooh, loyal. Penguin.
Oh, that's a nice one too.
Penguins
I like
are loyal to their mates.
Oh,
A dog.
Good. But it is a dog. It's a Saint Bernard specifically, because they come to the rescue. Except in my world, they have green tea in their little flask, not brandy.
I love it. Yes.
So that's the Saint Bernard, and then the bird. Which bird would you think would be represented by the S?
Okay, S. I don't know my birds. Friendly, steady. I don't know my birds.
It's the dove. It's the
dove. Oh,
the little cooing dove, right?
Cool.
Okay, and then we'll move over to the C.
Yeah.
The C is your beaver leader. Now the beaver is very precise and creates, they're good at processes and systems, creating the whole system for the family unit. And same thing with the wolf. They go after what they want, but it's all for the betterment of the pack, right? In the end, they may nip at your heels, but it's only to keep you safe.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's the 4. Oh, what bird would you say goes along with the C?
Very conscientious bird. I don't know.
The owl. The wise old owl. Yeah. So there is
That was amazing.
representation in nature all around us, the things, right, that sometimes equate more to our style and who we are. There's also all kinds of different intelligences and so forth. And taking care of yourself and really understanding who you are and being able to take care of those needs in yourself is going to make you a much brighter, happier, easier leader, colleague, relationship partner, all of those things, whatever role you're playing at any certain time. And again, these are labels. They're not meant to dictate or, pigeonhole anybody. They're really meant to be just a tool to help you to see what your strengths are so that you can go out and be the better, own it, right? Own that stuff.
Yeah.
If you're like an S and you're in a sales job, that's probably going to be really hard for you. So maybe that's why, if you're in a job that doesn't really suit who you are, it's time to get out and do something where you can really shine.
Yeah. I really like this, that you put animals with this, because it really helps me realize, because while we were talking, I'm kind of like thinking to myself, people are who they are, and this is the issue or the challenge or whatever it is. But when you're talking about these animals, you can see a little bit of the other ones in the animal. Even though they are predominantly one thing, they are also a little bit of the other thing.
Yeah.
So it really helped me kind of like be a little more tolerant, more so when I could kind of take it out of the humans and put it with an animal.
Yeah. Well, that's how it always is, isn't it? Whenever we get any kind of feedback about ourselves, it feels personal. It might feel yucky. But if you look at it as just feedback and stop putting so much meaning to how it came to you, don't shoot the messenger, but just look at it as feedback, then it's so much more easier to take. And again, you could decide to do something with it. Well, I am going to get myself a little bit more organized. I'm going to try to not be as creative, or I'm going to stop saying yes to everything. I'm going to start saying no, and you be more conscious about making those decisions and explaining or not explaining. It doesn't matter, but you know what I mean? Like when you stretch yourself out of your comfort zone every time you need to grow and expand, you're going to be better for it. It doesn't mean you always have to stay in that expanded state. You can step back into your comfort zone and then step out again. And it gets easier and easier to step out of that comfort zone. Yeah. Like some people, it's not comfortable at all to get up and speak or share their knowledge and expertise. But it's so gratifying. Other people say, oh, please share more. Like, this is so good. And it gives you the courage and the strength to continue to go out there and put your best self out there, because you're really helping other people. And that's what makes it so much fun to be in this kind of business, you and I, of helping other people to grow, right? And to tell their stories so that we can be not just inspirations, but give really knowledgeable pieces of advice and tools to help other people to live their best self.
100, definitely. Well, I love this. This was so informational. And I certainly hope that those that were or are watching live really got some nuggets of information on themselves and the people that are the closest to them that maybe they're having a little bit of a tough time with, because it really helps break it down in more of a visual way, especially with those animals, when you click those animals in with it. That's great. Well, this was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to reconnect with you again, and having a good summer here.
Yes, for sure. I do want to say, those that are listening live and those that are listening on the replay, if you resonated with what Maureen was talking about here, make sure that you connect with her. She is at emergentleadershipacademy.com. The description is in the video either below or above us, and also above her head area if you want to take a screenshot. But I'm going to go ahead and close up here. So I certainly hope you guys had fun listening. Thank you so much for joining us here on Her Version. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share. If you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, be sure to reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others.